Chapter 6. The Power of the Eye. The eye is one of the most potent means of influencing others. It not only serves to hold the attention of the person to whom you are talking, thereby rendering it easier to impress your suggestions upon him, but it is also a power in itself, which when properly used is the means of impressing your will upon another. It attracts, fascinates, and holds spellbound the active partner, and gives you a chance to talk with easygoing bother. The eye of the man who has mastered the law of mental control is a powerful weapon. It conveys the strong mental vibrations direct to the mind of the other party at short range. You have heard of the power of the human eye over wild beasts and savages, and many of you have met with men who seemed to look clear through you and whose steady gaze was almost unbearable. I will give you a few exercises in our next lesson, which will aid you in acquiring what is known as the magnetic gaze, a most important acquisition for the student of personal influence. In this lesson, I will assume that you have already acquired the magnetic gaze. The proper use of the eye in interviews with other persons will enable you to exert an influence over them, something akin to fascination or hypnotic attraction. This is the result of strong mental vibrations conveyed at short range by means of the magnetic gaze of the trained eye. You, of course, will be governed by the circumstances of each particular case, and it is difficult to give you general directions applicable to each case. You must adopt these general instructions to suit the emergence of each particular case as it arises. One of the most important things about the beginning of an interview is that you should look the other person squarely in the eye with a firm, steady, magnetic gaze. You need not stare at him, but your gaze must be steady and firm, and indicative of strong willpower and concentration. During the conversations, you may change the direction of your gaze, but whenever you make a proposition, statement, or request, or whatever you wish to impress upon him strongly, you must direct a firm, steady, magnetic gaze towards him, looking him straight in the eye. This is highly important and must not be neglected. When you are talking business, have an earnest, determined look or manner and hold the other man's attention. If you have a request to make it in a clear, dignified, earnest manner, keeping your eyes fixed upon his and willing at the same time that he will do as you say. By all means, prevent him from looking away from you at this point. You must hold his attention at all hazards. If you have his whole attention, the active brother will not be too engrossed to bother about his easy brother, and the latter will draw near and hear what you are saying. If the other party avoids your gaze, you can sometimes regain his attention by looking away yourself, watching him all the time out of the corner of your eyes, and as soon as he finds that you are looking the other way, he will opt to steal a glance at you. You must watch for this stolen glance, and the moment you find his eye turned towards your face, you must quickly turn your eye and give a look, sharp and determined. Keep your eyes fastened upon his, and holding his look by an effort of the will. Right there is a good point for you to drive in your little nail. You have him at a disadvantage, and the psychological moment has arrived for driving in a strong suggestion. If you cannot get him to look at you in the way above mentioned, it is a very good plan to have something to show him, a sample, picture, or some other object ascertaining to your business. You will find that after he looks at the object shown him, he will rise his eyes to yours. He will do this every time, and you must be ready for him with a firm, magnetic gaze and a strong suggestion. If you can keep a man's attention and can manage to look squarely at him during the interview, you will surely influence him to a greater or lesser extent, unless he is well posted on this subject, in which case it will be very difficult to influence him by direct means. Very few people, however, possess this knowledge, and you need not figure that element into the ordinary calculation. You may find that the other man will begin to feel that you are gaining some sort of influence over him, and he may in self-defense endeavor to terminate the interview. This you must not permit, for you have gained an influence and you must follow it up. Do not leave him until you get what you came for. In this connection, it may be well to suggest to you that, inasmuch as it is difficult for anyone to reason or deliberate clearly whilst they are under the influence of the magnetic gaze of another, it will be well for you to guard yourself against the use of this power at the hands of anyone else possessing the secret. You must preserve a positive mental attitude when you find that someone is trying to influence you, and hold that thought firmly, that you are strong and beyond such influence. This mental attitude will protect you, and you must, of course, reverse the instructions given you for influencing others. If a man is endeavoring to interest you in a proposition, do not allow him to hold your gaze uninterruptedly during the conversation. You may, without seeming to, avoid his gaze. Look away reflectively at intervals in an easy way. This will give you time to reflect a little and maintain your balance. When he makes you a proposition, look away from him in a deliberate manner, as if you are carefully considering every word that he is saying. If he manages to drive in a sudden suggestion or proposition when he holds your eyes, do not answer him until you have taken your eyes away for a minute and regained your positive balance. Then, if your answer is no, look him square in the eye with a positive glance and say your no firmly and deliberately, but of course politely. When in doubt, say no. Keep a sharp lookout for insidious suggestion given at a psychological moment, for this is where much of the danger lies. Let your own active partner be alive to his duties, and do not let the other fella get in a word with your passive partner. They will want to get a word with each other, but you must put down your active foot on it. The man who is doing the talking, if he understands his business, always is the positive factor in conversation, while the listener is more or less passive. The more intently and earnestly he listens, the more passive he is. The positive is stronger than the negative, and people should always be on their guard to avoid having positive suggestions forced upon them when they are in a negative condition. You should learn to give suggestions in an earnest, firm, positive manner, your voice showing that you expect them to be acted upon, and your mind assuming the belief that such will be the case. If you have not this desirable quality, you should take a few lessons from some good suggesters and practice on his subjects. The experience thus gained will be most useful. It is almost impossible to convey in a written lesson the manner and tone of voice best adapted for this purpose, which information I always impart to my personal classes by means of actual experiments under my supervision. If you will form a mental picture of what is implied by the two words confident earnestness, you will be able to grasp the idea I intend to convey when I tell you to make your suggestions in the proper manner. The lesson on concentration will also aid you in the respect of our next lesson will be devoted to the magnetic gaze. End of lesson.